All right. Good morning, gentlemen. Today is Daf Kuf Lamed, Mishnah at the top. All right, and away we go. So now here's actually the famous Shita we've been talking about the last couple blots. My son, when he said, "Oh, you're doing the Yesh Nechland, you get to Rabbi Yechon and Bruka." So what? So this is the Mishnah, I guess maybe it's known for. So let's see. If a person says, "Okay, my neighbor, he will inherit." Right, the guy is saying he's sick on his deathbed. Good morning, Yigal. We just started top of Kuf Lamed. Yigal Shalom. So a person says, "So yeah, let it go to my neighbor." Or if he says, right, because we know that the daughter inherits a person, not a neighbor. Or if he says, "Biti Tishen b'makom sheyesh ben," or if let's say he says there's a son and daughter, and he says, "Let my daughter inherit." Now we know midoraisa that the Torah, that the sons or son will get everything, the daughters will get nothing. So he wants to basically override that which the Torah says. And says, "My daughter will inherit me." Uses the word inherit. Lo amar klum. He has not said anything. It does not work. Shehis tamashik kasav, because he has made a condition that which is written in the Torah. Right? He used the word yershana, inheritance, as opposed to gift. The person is allowed to gift whatever he wants in his lifetime. There is no gift limits like IRS, non taxable, whatever it is. But over here, person, you can give, but he didn't say it. But if he says, let's say someone who's fit to yarshin him, so let's say he has Reuven, Shimon, and Levi, and he says, let Shimon get everything, right? Devarav Kayam, then it works. So let's say he has Reuven, Shimon, Levi, and Bethany, right? So right, so over there, which she is not set to inherit midoraisa. He can't say she'll inherit everything. That does not work.
If he has a son, who's younger, okay, right? But he doesn't say a gift, he doesn't get it, right?
No, he can say he will inherit. No, even an inheritance, according to Rabbi Yechon Broka, right? According to Rabbi Yechon Broka, right?
That's his opinion so far.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So he argued, right. So that's what he says. So now,
your last case, he says to Bethany, "I want you to hear everything that's the work."
That does not work.
He doesn't want you to hear it like the sons. Would that work? Would that work?
No.
Yes.
Everything. Just if he wants her to inherit with the sons, that doesn't work either.
Right. In other words, basically, his halacha is that once those who are inheriting, right, who are set to inherit, he can change the amounts. Right, as long as they're set to inherit midoraisa, right? Now, so let's understand the Tanakh. So So we said in them the reason is because let's say the neighbor versus his own daughter, or bas ben, or let's say he has a son and daughter, and he says he wants it to be a yarshin to his daughter, not his son, doesn't work. Mashma ben abanim or bas ben abanim. It sounds like over there, but if it says he wanted his son versus his other sons, or let's say a daughter versus other daughters, it would work. Same as Sefer. Let's take a look at the Sefer. If he says that somebody who is set to go ahead and inherit him, then it does work. It's the same as the Tanakama. Maybe Rabbi Yechon Broka says his sheet is that he can even say, "My neighbor will inherit," or "My daughter will inherit over my sons." Come on. But how could you say that? Rabbi Yishmael, who was the son of Rabbi Yechon Broka, they did not argue in such a case where the neighbor versus his daughter, or his daughter versus his sons, because they can't inherit. The Torah says that the sons get. The Torah says the daughter gets over the neighbor, right? So therefore, lo amar klum. He never said that. Alman nechalku. What do they argue about? Al ben abanin or bas ben abanos. Only in the case of, let's say, a son, he wants to have, let's say, Shimon get all the assets, or a daughter amongst his daughters. Sha'aba imer, that my father Rabbi Yechon Broka says Yarish, that does work. That doesn't go ahead.
No.
So how do you understand the Reisha and the Seifa? So Iba is same. So we see clearly that Rabbi Yechon Broka does not say, let's say, he can give to his daughter of his neighbor, and Kuf Lamed, right?
Yeah.
third line. So Iboy same by the fact that Rabbi Shmuel, who was the son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka, was saying they don't argue. Mashma that who was he saying that to the Tanakama? So the Tanakama must have understood that Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka indeed does say, even in a case of neighbor versus daughter, that he must have nechelku, and therefore maybe in our case we can say that according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka that would work. Maybe or Iboy sema, or you can say, which I anticipated, Kula Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka, which is all Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka, I'm missing a part. This is how you should read it. This is how you read the Mishnah. So if you missed the Mishnah, you're just coming in now. Here's how you understand the Mishnah. If a person says, my neighbor will inherit me, he's on his deathbed, he says, my neighbor will inherit me instead of my daughter, or or my daughter will go ahead and inherit me, of my sons. Lo amar klum, that does not work. But if he says he has only daughters, he says, okay, my second daughter, she'll inherit everything, or ben abanim, or let's say his son, he says Shimon should inherit everything. Even if he says he can go ahead and inherit everything, his work, it does work. Rabbi Yochanan, he himself says, if he says about somebody who is set to to be one among the inheritors, the Varav Kayam, then indeed it does work. So that was the understanding of the Mishnah, was all Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka, and basically, like it says, as long as the person is on the list of inheritors, then the dying person can go ahead and play around with so let's see, Alan, something's going on. So, let's see what's going on here. So let's get to your question. Halach Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka. The halach is like Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka. V'chein amar Rabba halach Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka. The halach is like Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka. For 4 lines from the bottom of Kuflam and Amar Aleph. And Amar Rabba, my time Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka. What is the reason? So Amar Akra, the pasuk says, V'haya b'yom anchilas banav. So it says on the day that he bequeaths down to his sons. So sounds like that the power is within the person. As long as the person is on the list, right? Who is the heirs, right? So he can go ahead and divvy it up because he's hanchilu as banav. It's like he bequeaths. It's like a verb. He is an active thing, so he can actively choose where he wants the money to go. I read the pasuk that also says, it says you can't go ahead and choose, let's say you have a favorite son, make him the bechor. You can't choose the bechor. You get the, let's just say it was, 20%, 20%, 20%, 40%, right? So you can't choose who's going to get the double portion. Nafka. So Gemara says, no. That's the use for something else. Look at the time. You were learning the Bryce Abachan and Aimer. It's going to come out a little funny. So Abachan and Aimer Mishum Rabbi Eliezer, he says the name of Rabbi Eliezer. Ma Tamalay what do we learn from the pasuk where it says Lo Yuchal Avakir? You can't go ahead and choose the Bechor. The fish in Arabic, because the pasuk says Va'ayah b'yom hanchilu as banav. Right? So on the day that he bequeaths down to his sons, Shiyachal, he can go ahead and Vahalodinu, and he can make a logical argument, right? We can make a logical argument. Ma pashut Shiyafa Keichel Shenaitel Beroikum Muksak. So a pashut, right? Pashut is referring to a regular son versus a bechor. So a pashut, he has good position. Why? Because he inherits his position on assets that his father had. We're on Kuf Lamed Amud Beis, 3 lines from the top, right? So he inherits. He what's it called? He inherits his position is both on assets that his father had and even receivables, right? His father was owed money, so money that comes in later, he gets an equal portion. So a pashut is considered to have a good position, right? A good position, right? He has a good position because he always inherits. And so he says, that he gets even receivables just like assets that are ready in father's bank account. So nevertheless, the father shows that the Torah says that the father can actually, choose his money for somebody else. In other words, the father has the ability, even though the guy has a good position, right? The father can take it all away from him. So Bechor, Shahura Keichel, the Bechor, the double portion, right, which is a weak position. So because on receivables, he does not get a double portion, only gets regular, right? Lo Kol Shekain. Is it not obvious that the father can go ahead and play around with his bechira. In other words, if he can play around with a regular son's bechor and let him get a regular son and get 0,
That's only with the double piece.
the double piece, right? So certainly the father can play around with the double portion.
Right.
With that, the second, let's say we said it was 20, 20, 20, 20, 40. He can play around with that other 20%. But you might think that Talmud therefore it says lo yuchal levakir. You can't go ahead and give it. In other words, it could be that the father says Shimon gets everything, right? But he can't say is Shimon will get the bechor. Shimon will come to the bechor and get the double portion. That he can't do. So it could be like a way of semantics, right? But anyways, if there's any money left over, right, the bechor is noitel pishnayim, right?
Even though Yosef got it.
Right, but somebody else can get it. What do you mean? You're saying the Torah?
Right, and Reuben was supposed to be the Bechor, and
Right.
Baruch gave 2 portions to Yosef.
Right. So right. So that's what we had the couple was it a week ago? Yeah. That seems like so long ago, right? So despite that, all right, and economy. So that's the drashta here in this puzzle. So then it says Vayomer.
We're not really talking about a Yerusha here, because the father is still alive and he's designated.
He's on his deathbed. We're soon going to see he's a shemara, right? We're soon going to see. We ask the question is, what is he allowed to go ahead and do? Let's say he's buried. Does this also work? But this we're going over here where there's a special takana that normally a person, right, that you have to make a kinyan, but normally over here that for that, so for that really to go like during the lifetime, right? But over here it's a gift of shemara, which would work as a Yerusha.
Oh, it does. It goes the same.
Right. Goes yeah. Goes is more than a shemara, right?
Yeah.
So then it says, so you see over here that you can't go ahead and touch the bechor. The bechor remains with the bechor. He gets double portion whatever is left, right? If whatever's left of the estate, there's nothing left of the estate because it was already given away to Shimon. Then he gets 2x, so it'd be 2 times 0, right? We get 0. And then it says, here he can't go ahead and choose. So what do you see? Learn from the pasuk. It says, on the day that he bequeaths down to his sons, that you could have made a logical argument the opposite way, like we just said. Just like a bechor, that he doesn't get the double portion when it comes to things, money that comes in right in the future later on, receivables into the father's estate that comes in after his death. He doesn't get double portion there. Nevertheless, the Torah says, do not touch his bechira, right? It's off limits. So in other words, you take the money very serious. He's a pashut. So a regular son, a regular son who always gets a share, even in the money that's in the father's estate when he dies, and even money that come in after the estate afterwards. Certainly that money cannot be messed around with, quote unquote, right? From the father. That on the day when he bequeaths down to his sons, the father can go ahead and give to whoever he chooses, i.e., amongst those who the Torah says, inherits. I.e., let's say if the sons get, so it's the 6 sons, he can divvy it out as he chooses.
Mm-hmm.
Fine.
But he has to say.
For Yochanan Broka.
So that was all. That was the svara of Yochanan Broka. So svara of Yochanan is the Torah allows you to go ahead, to go ahead and to give whoever he chooses.
He has to say gift, no?
No, not going to Yochanan Broka.
Is that the final? But that's not the final.
Amar Rav Zeker, Amar Rabbi, Amar Rabbi Chanina, Amar Rabbi. Halach Rabbi Yochanan Broka. The halach is like Rabbi Yochanan Broka. I wasn't ignoring you. I was reading on the next line. So Amar Le Rabbi Abba. Hoyra Yitamar. It doesn't say he ruled halacha like them. Rather, he ruled the case like him. Hoyra, right? There was a case. So b'mai kivifli. What's the machlokes there? Mar sabar halacha difa. One held that to say the halacha, right, there's like a stronger position. And then it says, no, Maisarav, it was used in practice. That's even actually a stronger proof that it's like Rabbi Yochanan Broka. Fine. Tan Rabbanan, we're on the second last skinny line on Kuf Lamed Amud Beis. Tan Rabbanan, ein lemidin halacha, lo mipi limud, lo mipi maisa. A person should not go ahead and extract the halacha, not from learning. Right, you learn something in Gemara class, you come out, you extrapolate, this is how you have to do it. Lo mipi maisa, and not from action. Ad sheyomru lo, until they tell him halacha l'maisa. This is halacha l'maisa. Shalv Amalo halacha l'maisa, and if he says this is a halacha l'maisa, yelech v'yaseh maisa. You can go ahead and do this actual maisa ubilvad shelo yidame, as long as you don't compare it to another case. The one says my bilvad shelo yidame. What does it mean shelo yidame? The entire Torah is, compare and contrast. You see, what do you think, Mars? Bastards should be somewhere. We're like short. Every time we have every other Gemara, then we switch Masechtas, and then that Gemara.
Except for the one we need.
Yeah, because that's what I'm saying. The bastard we had.
It's supposed to be.
Yeah, look at the thing. Can you see what
Have a
good shotgun. Have a good shotgun. Go ahead, rip it.
Yeah. Okay, fine.
Sure. I like it.
Sure.
That's okay.
Okay. All right. So the entire Torah, the way we pass is, you look at one case. This is how we ruled in one case. So we try to apply it to another case. So we can't go ahead and necessarily compare with trephos. Oh, this animal was, punctured by a pole, and this animal was punctured by a pole. So do we know that the animal would have died? And if it would have died on its own, it's a treifa. If it would have survived, it's not a treifa. The tiny little brisa, hey, no, I mean, but treifa, so you can't say this compared to that. And you can't go ahead, right? And you can't wonder why. Because if you go over here, if you puncture from over here, it will die. But if you go from this side, it will live. So no, it's not all the same. You can't always compare. If it's the exact same case, then you could rule the same halacha. But if it's similar, let's apply just like with that to this case, that you don't do by trephos. And Amar le Rav Asad Rav Yechan ki Amar lan mar halacha haki. When you say the halacha is like this, navin ma'isa. So when you say this is the halacha, so navin ma'isa. So can we do the ma'isa? Amar lo tavidu ad de'amina halacha l'ma'isa. Until I say halacha l'ma'isa, then you can go ahead and rule on it. And Amar Lahu, Rav Papa, Rav Huna Bered, Rav Yeshua, so Rav said, Rav Papa, Rav Huna Bered, Yeshua. Kiasi Psaka Didina Didi Lekamaichu. One of my, let's say, Piske Chuba is one of my halachas come in front of you. The Chazisa Be Pircha, and you have a kash on it. Loi Takruhu. Don't go ahead and tear it up and and say I'm wrong. Until you come to me. Why? If I had a reason, in other words, I know your question and I had a question. I will go ahead and explain to you why, despite your difficulty with my halacha, I came out to my conclusion. The law, and if it was something that I didn't think of, and you actually have a good kasha, hajina be right. I'll go ahead and I'll be chayzer, right? I got no pride. And liachar misa, however, after my death, loy mikra takrihu, do not go ahead and tear up my tribas. Mikra nami loy tikrihu, but nevertheless, don't go ahead and reapply paskin like it. They'll learn from it. Why? Loy mikra takrina, don't go ahead and tear it up. Di havi hasam, because if I were live, I could have gone ahead and explained to you the reason for why I rule that way, and I had the same kasha as you. And Migbar Navi like Tigmamine, and also do not go ahead and learn from it. You can only go ahead and pass him that which is in front of him. So in other words, that if maybe it was another case, and maybe it was something that in that specific case, we might have to go to the base matters for it. So if it was
come on.
Okay. I bet you there's several ones also in the library. So he say, so they let me Shane of Rice. So now maybe it was something in that specific case that he saw he had to rule that way, but maybe other cases he would not go ahead and rule that way. Fine. Now come to today's daf. So by Rabba. Now this is sort of touching on what Eddie said before. What about a healthy person? So till now, you see the Rashbam just started off like that. So till now. All right. So till now we've been talking about a person on his deathbed. Is the Rashbam was brought down many times. He just he didn't say in the first case in the Mishnah. But so the question is, what about a healthy person? The guy is not in his deathbed, and he wants to, he wants to go ahead and start doing his estate planning.
He's writing his will.
He's writing his will, right? He's telling his kids, look, when I'm gone, this is how I want it to be. So Baria, so what in that case? Hey, ki kama Rabbi Yechim Broka. When Rabbi Yechim Broka said his statement, that was that just b'shchimera, deba arisihu, right? Who is basically someone who can basically give over and bequeath during his lifetime because he's on his deathbed. But if he's healthy, no. Or even maybe when he's healthy. So Amar Le Rav Misharshi Rava. So Tashma, come listen. Diamar Lo Rabbi Nassan Rabbi. So Rabbi Nassan said to Rabbi. Now remember, Rabbi Huda, Rabbi is Rabbi Huda Nasi, right? He put the Mishnayos together. He says, "Shanisa Mishnasechem Krabiyechel and Broka." Your Mishnayos, your set of that you set up the Mishnah goes like Rabbi Yechel and Broka. That a father can basically divvy up as he chooses, right? How how he wants the estate to go. Where we see that? That's now we learn in the Mishnah in the Ksubas. It says like Kasala ben Dichrin. Dahavi lech minoi inun yarsim kasak zasecha yosef kegam di machahem. So let's say a person does not write an Ksubas ben Dichrin. Now Ksubas ben Dichrin is that a woman, let's say, marries a man, and she's a bit concerned that he's promised that he is going to award her a Ksuba, right? But she's like, but what if you have other children? So it says, your sons will inherit your Ksuba. Right? They'll take your ksuba and their
previous sons.
Well,
Isn't it the previous sons that she had?
Yeah.
her
natural, right?
No, her sons from the marriage, right?
Previous.
No, minai, right? Like because of benin dichrin to having lach minai. Right. Now, we'll have children together, but this ksuba is only for your sons. So if I go ahead and marry another woman and have more sons, and then let's say that the father survives her or whatever it is, so those boys will not get your ksuba. This ksuba goes to your boys.
Right.
Do not fear. The ksuba will go to you, and if you die, it will go to your sons. It won't go to any other members of my sons. Right? The male sons that you have from me. They will inherit the money from your ksuba. Above and beyond the rest of the estate, they will divide with my other sons from other wives.
So
let's say he doesn't. That's a ksuba's b'din dichrin.
Right, he separates their families.
Well, he has ksubas, right? He has the ksuba, right? Let's say and then he has his estate.
Right.
Why can't he give it to his wife when he dies? Because she can
because
the other children from the other children of the other wife.
Yeah.
Right. When he when he dies, you go to her.
Only the child that she has. This is not in the will.
He's-
It's not right.
Right. So nevertheless, if he doesn't write it in, he's chayiv. He's chayiv to do it. In other words, that now once again, the guy dies, right? Let's say the guy dies, and so there's the ksubas, right, that get paid, and then the estate gets paid. But the Torah doesn't say that. The Torah doesn't say, hey, the ksubas, the benediction. Torah says the estate goes to the sons. It doesn't care, right?
His wife.
I'm saying, I'm saying it doesn't. He's chayiv, should try basin, right? So it's a Tanai basin. So what do you see from over here? That this guy, right? Nevertheless, he has to go ahead and do it. He basically, it's different than what the Torah says, like Rabbi Yechim and Broka, right? It's different. And also, when's he writing this? He's writing this at the time of his marriage. He's a bari. He's not a shchimero, right? He's a bari. So you see, when a person is a bari, he's able to choose which sons get. So therefore, it's like Rabbi Yechim and Broka, because over here, since he's basically giving over as a Yerusha, because he uses the words Inun Yarsun Kasef, they will Yarshin, right? So therefore, you see clearly that this Rabbi Yechim and Broka even would apply for a bari. So, however, the Rabbi says Yisvun Tanan. No. Don't say that they will Yarshin Kasek. Say Inun. Yisvun instead of Yirsun. Yisvun, they will take as a matana. In other words, it's a matana given. So matana is different. A matana is not against the Torah, right? A person can give away his matana. So he says, no, you can't use it as a proof. However, V'omar Rebbe, and Rebbe says, you know what? Yaldus Haisabi, I was
Mature.
I was immature, or I got a little nervous, and I jumped in, and I said, "Oh, fix that language." But really, you don't have to fix it. I'm not here, so I'm going to defend the original lashon of Yerusha, right? Vasti Panai Benasna Babli, right? And therefore, I responded too quickly to Reb Nassan. The Kaim Alam B'Nichrin Loita from Mishabati, because we also established the B'Nim Dichrin. You do not go ahead and collect it from Mishubadim, from stuff that was, let's say, previously sold. Let's say the guy's ksuba has to be paid, so you can't go back and say, "Whoa, that estate that you sold now goes to the sons, to her sons, right?" Because if you say, right, that it was indeed given as a gift, right? Why do you not go ahead and take Mishabati? If it was a gift, then it was given from the original time. If it was given from the original time, that's before the guy sold the land to somebody else, right? It must be that's coming back as the Yerusha, right? It must be it's coming back as Yerusha, and it's not because it's not Ton, it's a Yerusha. And nevertheless, right? And nevertheless, you see, that it does. Elishmamina Yarsun Tanan, right? Right. So
Her original show, right? That's why he does what.
Well, no, it was given. Her sons will yarshin it, right? And
it was her.
Right, well, they get it from her side, right? Right. She is not there to collect, so they will go ahead and collect it. So Elish Flamino Yarsin Tanan. So now Man Shmias Le Disle Hai Svara. Who's the one who holds this Svara that you can go ahead and he can give it as a Yerusha to different levels? Rabbi Yechon Broka, right? Ushma. So that's according to Rabbi Yechon Broka. Ushma mina apilu baria. So we learn over here that it's even with a bari, right? Even with the person who's bari, we see that this what's it called? Even with the bari, this tanai or not this tanai. Excuse me, I don't know. Right, opposite. This he's allowed to go ahead and say and divvy up even while he's a bari to different levels, as we see from this case. So Amarle Rav Papa Abaye Sabain. So he says Sabain Laman the Yisbun Bain Laman Damar Yusum, right? Even if you say Yusum, or whether it was they take it and as a gift from this time or give it as a Yerusha at the time of his death, right? The person, right? You can't be something that is not in reality yet. And even according to the opinion who holds that a person could be maknes something that is not in existence yet. This is something, right? Something that's at least to somebody who already exists, right? But over here, but over here, the children were not born at the time of the ksuba, right? He's doing the time before the marriage. So the children are born and never said words. So how could he be mocking something? So you can't say it's really something with Torah Yerusha. Ella, it's a Tanai Bezdin, right? So rather it's a Tanai Bezdin. Shani, right?
The apples that will be produced in 3
but over there there's no the kids aren't born, right? So sometimes with apples you have the tree. Right. So over here, there's nothing in existence, right? There's my focus over there by if the apples are in existence, if the trees are there, right? So the Tanai based in Shani. So maybe it's a Tanai based is different. So how can that be Tanai based in Shani? So maybe over here you can't learn from this case and say, his condition works in a regular case of Rechel and Broka says, one guy wakes up on a Sunday morning and says, you know what? One son will get everything, the other two sons will get 10% each, and one guy will get 80%, right? Because we see in the case in the Mishnah by the Ksua's been a Dichrin, he can go ahead and he's dividing his estate, not per marriage a little bit, and not versus all of his sons equally. So how can you compare the two? Maybe that's a Tanai Bezdin, and Tanai Bezdin is different. You can't learn from that case. You can't say it applies by a bari. So he says because it says no. So and why is that? Because he's a lashon of Yerusha. So Hadar Abaye Lav Milsi. Rather, it's not true. To Amri, right? That what you said, because it says the Tanan like Kasala, but in Nekuvin the Havi Luchai Minai Havino Yasvan the Basi Visum Nechsai Ad Techena Ligdaifer. So let's say a person forgot to write that to a woman, your female daughters, right? Well, your daughters, right? Nowadays, yeah. Right. So he says, your daughters they will have from me, right? Your daughters will have from me. They will be able to go ahead and eat from my house, right? From this the chasim from the suba until they get married, right? So now it's not giving Yerusha, right? This is clearly not Yarsun, right? This is not Yarsun. This is a gift of Mizonos. right? This is a gift of mazonos, and nevertheless it's chayiv.
Wouldn't they get that anyway?
What?
No.
It doesn't have to be written in the.
No, it goes to the sons. The Yerusha goes to the sons. What do the daughters get?
Yeah, but the daughters, we learned back in Ksuvos.
Yeah.
Tonight,
That-
It's a Tanai basin. That's what we're saying here. But midaraisa, the father dies, right?
The sons
The
get,
sons get it.
but the daughters have to be supported.
That's where we
Oh, that's.
that's only Tanai basin. You're talking about after the fact, right? So he says, so the governor tonight, nevertheless, if he doesn't write it, he's still chayushu Tanai basin,
Yeah.
right? Vahavi lezeb matana lezeb yerusha. Now, you know what this reminds me of? The last couple of blogs we've been discussing. A person, right? The previous Mishnah wants to give this one a matana. This field is a matana. This field is a yerusha. So he says, as long as there's a word matana in there, the matana was really going on both, right? So it should work, right? So over there, that's it. Even the Rabbanan would agree that that works. So therefore, you can say it's not going to be Echon Broka. This is a case of where he's giving the sons Yerusha. So why does that work? Maybe because he's a bar. No, it works because he also used the word matana, and he's giving matana to the girls, just like he's giving matana to the boys that they inherit afterwards. Right, because that was that's why he was chayzer, right?
They're not married yet. They're not one yet.
Right. So so that's why he said the whole thing doesn't make sense, right? Abaye was coming in, right? That's what is coming in. Right, Hadar, right? Hadar Abaye Lav Milsi, right? You can't even say this, even if you go to the extent, you can't say it. You know, even without the whole Tanai Basin, even without that, there's still a problem in your teretz. In other words, like they're going back, they're like doubling down. They're saying how it certainly doesn't work, right? It knows it can't be anything but a special condition of basin. It can't be a proof of what you're saying, right? Because then it'll be a matana and the and therefore certainly you can't go ahead and learn out a regular case of a person on a Sunday morning saying, you know what? Right.
From this, you can learn that you can always live in peace because the matana always can compromise.
But so now there's matana, but if nothing was given Torah's matana, that's only regarding living from the ksuba, right? But over here, right, this is something else. So I'm going to Rav Nachman Nachumi, excuse me. Some say Rav Chananya bar Minyumi Labaye. So Mimai. Who says we're talking about a case of basically it was, like we said, there was one one is a matana and one is Yerusha, and therefore automatically works, and that's why it works. That's why he's able to give it, and therefore you can't learn out a special case of that says it's Rabbi Yechon Broka or it's Rabbanan, because according to everybody it would work. But who says we're talking about that it was the same basin that went ahead and did it? So I said, no, you can't think it was different. The Tani Reisha, the Reisha says, Zeb Midrash Darsh Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Lefnei Bekerem B'Yav. This is a Josh that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah learned for the Bekerem B'Yav. Now he says, Habanim Yirshu V'Abanos Yizonu. The sons will go ahead and inherit, and the daughters will go ahead and they'll sustain themselves from the land or the property that was promised in the ksuba. I'm sorry. Yes, yeah. So, right. So ma, but in a yarshin eliachar misas aviha, and just like the sons don't go ahead and inherit only until after misas aviha. Abanos laizanu eliachar misas aviha. So to the daughters only get it later on. So you might be shlama b'chad beidina. It's good if you say it was all done by one base in hand yafina and takana metakana. That's how you can go ahead and compare the two. Ella yamarta betray beitin iskin. How could you go ahead and learn one takana from the other? In other words, that it must have been done by the same Beis Din. So the Gemara says, betray Beitina Iskun. Right? Perhaps that they were both Batidina. Well, Beitina Basra, Tikun Beitina Kama. So maybe, but maybe the second one was only done from the first one. In other words, that he only said he only compared the two because he didn't want one kasha on the other, and therefore it was done by the same basin. But it turns out, so just to go back, right, that it turns out that we cannot learn the case of Bari from the case of Shuvas ben Adichrin, because that was a special takana based in, whether it's only according to Rabbi Yechon Broka or right, but which seemingly not. It can even be according to both, because there's a takana goes both ways, and it's considered to be a matana and a yerush at the same time, where both should work, and therefore it's lav dafka only according to Rabbi Yechon Broka.
And you need to say gift.
Yeah.
You need to say gift.
No, not
If
according
you
to
wanna, that for him,
not according to according to,
but to everybody else.
according to the Rabbanim.
Yeah.
According to the Rabbanim. Right.
Yeah.
Fine. Two dots. Two dots. So Omar Rav Yehuda Omar Shmuel says Rav Yehuda in the name of Shmuel. Hakaisev kol nechasav leishto. One who writes all of his nechasim to his wife, right? So it will go to her, right? Assuming we're talking about once again somebody is he's dying. He says let it all go. Or even if he's not, because that's ha'omer. This is hakaisev. He writes down kol nechasav leishto lo asa ela apitropa. He didn't only make her an apitropa. In other words, only a watchman for her to go ahead and divvy up to his children while they're still katanim. But he never would have given away. So he never would have given it away from his son. So the question is, so why did he write his wife? There must be a reason behind it. So a reason behind it would be he wants them to respect mom. He wants them to respect mom. How are they going to respect mom if she's in charge of the money? She got the checkbook. So therefore, the svar is if even though one writes it, all my assets will go to my wife. It couldn't be that he's taking away from his kids and giving to his wife. It must be that they just meant for her to be the apitropa and therefore to in that way.
Mama said, everything goes to the
Spouse.
Dad goes to the spouse, and then after the spouse goes to the kids. But it should be written in the thing that as apotropos.
Right, as a
executor.
Exactly.
Who's a credit to the group?
So now, what about this case? Pshita, so it says Pshita, Bino Agadol, Lo'ata Ele Apitropos, right? Let's say the guy wrote all of his assets to his oldest son. So once again, why did he write his assets to his oldest son? Was it to give all his assets to his oldest son? Or maybe it was for him to be in charge of the money and give it out. So Pshit, that's obvious in the case. So if he writes it to his oldest son, it's to become the apitropos. Why is that? Because
he
he's the oldest.
can't disinherit the other kids.
No, he could, according to Yecham Broka. Remember, he can give to all he wants. But over here, why is the oldest son? The oldest son should be respected, right? So he's going to do with the father, let him be respected. What about Benoah Katan Mai? What about if he gives it to the youngest son, right? The youngest son. So is he giving everything to the youngest son? Or is there a reason behind it that he wants them to respect the youngest son? So Mai, so Rav Chaniloi Bar Idi Amar Shmuel Afilu Benoy Katan Hamuto Berisa. Even if he's the youngest, right? He's in a crib, right? Still a baby. Nevertheless, he did not give him everything. Really, what he meant was he'll be the administrator, and in order for the other brothers even to give kavod to the youngest
son more than the oldest.
Yes. So obviously he doesn't know too much about the youngest son. He's still in a crib, but I guess he knows a lot about the older son. Yeah.
He knows that he'll be
By default. Yeah. That's to say, right? By default. Exactly. So what up, Pshito? Pshita Benova Acher. So let's say he has sons, right? Or let's say, he has sons, and let's say he wants to give to his son, or he wants to give to his neighbor. Okay. So Acher b'matana. So if it was someone on the outside, there's no reason to respect the neighbor. So why else is he writing all of his assets to the neighbor? It must be indeed the guy was giving it to him as a matana, and therefore he's allowed to give away matana as he wants. All right, which is not good for the boys, right? But no, and if it was given to his son, it was not given to his son as a matana. Rather, it was given to his son to become the apetropos.
Was like a 50-50? What is it? No back there, huh?
No. Two different cases. One case is Beno, and one case is Acher, right? So the Acher, that's gone. That's out of the family. He just gave the neighbor.
Sorry, but this case, Beno back there.
Right? No. I think it's two different cases. Beno, right? In two different cases. The Acher.
Oh, I do.
Could be the other one also.
Really?
Yeah, that's what it says here.
No, I think it's a 50-50 split.
Why can't it be? Over.
Where's the Rashbam?
And Pasha, I think she goes to call another Adam after 3 years still bad. Yeah, no, he says that he said
Beno, the Acher can go in Beno, Uben Beno, Shemeshri.
$100,000. Said, okay, I want my neighbor to get $20,000, and $80,000 we should go.
So the two part of them. Yeah. So right. Any amount that goes to Beno is given to Avis Shabbos. Any amount that goes to Acher is considered to be Tana.
It's his
Right.
It's a split of some
funds.
So now Ishta Arusa. So his wife, she was only an Arusa. In other words, he never lived with her, right? He was never intimate with her. She was only his. He was only betrothed to her. The Ishta Grusha, right? Or somebody that he divorced. So if he leaves it to them, now there is no reason for them to go ahead and honor her. So that is given matana as a gift. That one's a gift. So Iboilu, what about Bas Eitzel Abanim? What about he gave it to his daughter and there were sons, or the Isha Eitzel Achim, or there, let's say he has to his wife and he doesn't have kids, but he has brothers, or the Isha Eitzel Bnei Abal. Or what about if he has a wife versus his other boys, right? The sons of Baal. Mahu. What do you say in those cases? So Amar Avina Mishmei Derava, the Kulu Loikano. So all these other cases so in the cases we meant earlier, the Kulu Loikano Labar Mi Ishto. Except we said Lokano acquire means they acquire. In other words, if you acquire, that means you get it matana. If you don't acquire, that means you're just the apitropos, right? So he says, "V'kulu leikana labar miishta rusa v'ishta gerusha." Now, if he gives it to anybody else, it was for the purposes of any other for respect, any types of the sons, older, younger, those cases, or what was the other case we had? Right, or the daughter amongst them. So all these other cases, these other relatives. Those were for the purpose of respect, and therefore the Yabei Chobas. But except for the Bar Ishto, or except for his wife who was only betrothed her, or he was divorced from her, those are indeed a gift, because no other reason he wants them to be respected. And Rav Avira Mishmei the Rav Omar Bekulu Kanu. Actually, all the cases they do acquire it. In other words, they do get it as a matana. Labar me ishe tzachon, except his wife amongst his brothers, that is done the purpose of it to be apitropas, and the isha etzel bnei abal. And the case of his wife versus his other sons, those are given for the purposes of respect and not necessarily given as a gift. So the Gemara, I guess, continues with more kashas, and I guess we'll stop here. Haven't shared time to say karbanos, right? So shayach everybody.
What's Karbanos?
Oh, actually, maybe I'll dive in.
They don't say it in